It's like we are the designated friends for when things in pop culture go on. Well, we gotta talk about it with this person. Like if something exciting in pop culture goes on, I'm going to be like, oh, well, I got to call Dom. I got to ask Dom what he thinks of this. And it helps you build a closer friendship because you have more of a reason to talk to each other on more of a regular basis.
It's true. It's true. Well, yeah, that's like people are FYE. Yeah, I think because of you and I, like, they quickly realized when they got hired, they weren't just joining a staff, they were joining a fucking brotherhood. You know what I mean? Because, like, we did become friends with all the employees, at least like the long-term ones or the ones that stuck around, or we tried to get along with them to the best of our ability. And it was so funny when I transferred to Lafayette, like that wasn't the case. I made some really good friends from working at Lafayette too. But, you know, the thing is like, they didn't understand that if, you know, because I tried to instill the philosophy of, you know, hey, we're friends now. You're hired here. You and I are buddies now. Just accept that. And like, I think that they knew that, but they, you know, took advantage of that too. You know what I mean? To a degree where it was like getting ridiculous. And they didn't understand that when they took advantage of that I was going to get pissed. So the second I got pissed for them, it was like, oh, we're no longer friends anymore. Right. You know, but me being pissed at you doesn't mean that I don't like you. You know, it just means that right now you stepped on the boundaries that we had in place here. I'm still your boss, you know. I'm trying to, you know, keep those boundaries in place, and they didn't get that. They would just be like, nope, I'm taking advantage of your friendship. I'm gonna call off every fucking day of work, and because you're not gonna do anything about it. I was like, the fuck I won't.
It's almost like balancing, like when you have a roommate, it's almost like balancing being roommates and being friends. And I think it would be stupid to have a roommate and not try to be friends with them because you're with each other all the time. But to me, working with people or being or having employees, I feel like is very similar to having roommates. It's like you're going to be together all the time. So you might as well try to be friends. But remember, there's responsibilities that we all have that need to be, you know, kept in check. Like if you have a roommate, you expect the person to wash their dishes. You expect them to clean every now and then, you know, and keep tidy. You expect them to pay their bills on time. And it's like, if you and I are roommates and you don't clean up after yourself and you're not paying your end of the bills and I come at you, it doesn't mean that we're not friends. It means like, hey, you know, we are roommates too, and we're kind of in this together. And I look at jobs the same way. Like I don't see why you can't be friends with your coworkers or your employees. Everybody just has to understand that there is the friendship and then there is the business relationship. And, you know, when people don't hold up their end of the business relationship, then there have to be repercussions. That doesn't mean you're less friends. It just means everybody has to know their place in terms of the business end of it.
Right.
You know? Yeah,
no, for sure. And, you know, I learned that really quick, you know, when I got to Lafayette, man, because like that was the point where it was like, well, I was put in a higher position of power for sure. And, you know, the thing to that was, you know, I would always ask myself, how the fuck did Adam do it? You know what I mean? Because like I always felt like we're able to strike like a really good balance between that. For me, I don't know if it's just like Lafayette people versus Kokomo people, but for me, it was just like they just stepped on those boundaries, man. And it's like, you can't do that, you know, but and that would cause me to get mad, or maybe you just have a better temperament than I do when it comes to that. But for me, it just like, and like I felt like, you know, I would get upset, and then I was like, oh, that's why Brett got mad back in the day, you know, because like I understood it, you know what I mean? It was like a light bulb went off in my mind when I started to get upset with employees. It was like, oh, now I understand it, you know, and it just, I mean, I hope he knows that I do understand it now too, because it was something, man. I don't know how he does it, you know. It's hard to balance that, you know.
It's a delicate balance for sure.
Yeah.
But you know, my philosophy in terms of that has always been like, and I think I was definitely more lenient in terms of that than Brett. Sure. You know, of course, Brett was still friends with all of us, but you know, him having to answer to like the district manager and all that. Like he had more responsibility on his shoulders, so he was thinking more in terms of making sure that he was running a tight ship and we were getting stuff done. So I had more freedom to be more lenient with, you know, playing around and being friends. So, you know, all of our dynamic is much different between each manager and what responsibility you have on your shoulders.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've always thought, even before he was there, when everything sort of fell on my shoulders out of nowhere, like I still held the belief that, okay, we have a lot of stuff to do, but if I'm a jerk to everybody and I treat them like a boss or like I'm bossing them around all the time, and I don't give them a reason to come to work, like make it fun, you know, it makes it harder for everybody, and it'll end up taking longer to turn the store around in the end anyway, because people won't want to show up for work, and then you get turnover and people quit and stuff like that. So I was always willing, even though sometimes we had to get stuff done by a certain time, I was always willing to mess around sometimes, as long as we ended up getting the thing done in a reasonable time. I thought there's no reason why we can't have a day where we just kind of chill and you know, we talk about stuff, but then, you know, at some point during the night or the next day, you got to put your nose down and you got to do the work, you know, as long as it gets done.
Yeah. It was just, I don't know. There was just such a difference in Lafayette. A lot of it too was the traffic, you know, because we did have more traffic, and it was like, once I realized that, I was like, this is going to be very difficult to have these really fun and sort of healthy relationships. But I don't know, man, like when you were running things, it was just like, it was so smooth. Like you had a way of doing it like so smoothly to where it was like, yeah, you're going to lend your ear to whoever wants to talk to you in the moment. But then we're also going to get shit done, like you said. And then it just seemed like when you were running it, it just happened somehow, some way. Like we just did it. You know what I mean? We just got it done. Like what I think that you have that I didn't have is just a way to motivate them to work. You know, I'm good at having fun with them, but when it comes to motivating them to work, that was not my specialty right there. I mean, it was mostly just, you know, I want to have fun with you, and then like I can bust my ass, you know what I mean? But when it comes to trying to get you or somebody else to bust their ass, that was where I struggled for whatever reason. And I tried to say it nicely to them, you know, like this is what needs to be done. But something about the way that you ran things, I don't know what it was, what you said, what the magic words were, but you just said something to get people to just do shit. And we just like, you know, like I said, we just always did it when it was you running it, you know, we always just managed to do it.
I think it's just like, it's, once again, I think it has to do with how much responsibility you have and how much pressure is on your shoulders, and how well you are at taking the pressure and having a balance. But also it just has to do with my personality and you know, my sort of ADHD nature, where my whole life, because that's how my personality is.
Right.
I've always been able to compartmentalize, and even though my brain is kind of a mess, I'm used to a lot of things going on up here at once. So it came more naturally to me, oh, well, we can have fun and get stuff done at the same time. It's like I've got multiple engines running at the same time because my brain is always moving in different directions anyway. So it was a matter of learning to harness that. And, you know, sometimes it gets the best of you and you end up having more fun than you do getting stuff done. But like I said, if you can switch it on at some point and say, okay, well, we'll reserve the fun a little bit for later, and now we'll kick on the engines and we'll get to work. But, you know, like I said, it's also a thing where when you went to Lafayette, you had to step up, and you were in a position to where you had more responsibility on your shoulders because you got a promotion. And you hadn't had that at that point yet, so that was you first stepping into that role. So you had to grow, and it takes time to grow into something like that. So, you know, where you were at Kokomo, like I said, there were tiers of responsibility. Like there is, you know, there was Corey at district manager, and then there was Brett, and then there was me, and then there was you. and then are all of the other employees, and it's tiered in terms of who takes the most crap if stuff doesn't get done.
Yes.
So Corey is going to be the most stern one because he's listening to corporate and they're mad at him, and he really takes a lot of heat. And then Brett's going to be second most stern because he's got to answer to the district manager. And then I'm going to be the next most, I have to be the most balanced because I'm then taking it from Brett. And then you, because then you're taking it from Brett, or you're taking it from me if I have pressure on me. Yeah. So it just has to do with how much is on each person's shoulders. Yeah. And I think as you go down the tiers, people tend to be more at the top of the tier, more based on getting stuff done and less on friendships. Yeah. And as you get down, you get more, well, let's have fun. Let's have more fun because you don't answer for as much. Yeah. So when you stepped into that role, it was the same as when, I was a regular employee and I got thrown into the assistant position, and I'd never been in that position before. Yeah. So, I was going through the same thing where I was like, I don't know how to do this. Now I'm answering directly to everybody, and this is stressful, and it's hard to balance, but you spend some time in it and you get used to it. And then you sort of find a balance at some point, and you find your philosophy of how you want to run the ship. And, that's how it goes.
Yeah, like in retail, you kind of fail upward, I guess, when you think about it. Because I think that, and I think that was one of the problems when I was at Lafayette is, like, Brett, like your example at Kokomo, Brett's supposed to be the one taking the most from the DM. That always ended up being me. Somehow, some way, I always got the hammer put down on me. Like, regardless of, what it was. And I don't think it was because he was picking on me. I think it was because I never had a fucking store manager, And so there was a lot of times at Lafayette that I was trying to take it on by myself. And that's impossible to do. You and I both know that. It's impossible to do. If Brett hadn't stepped into that, third management role, we would have never cleaned up the mess in general. You know what I mean? You and I, we could have maybe, but it would have taken a lot longer. So we needed the three of us to team up to be able to, actually get to that point. So, so for me to like have all these like windows where there was no store manager, is how I ended up getting, I feel like, the brunt of a lot of that heat, which stressed me out even more. Not to mention the way that, the company was doing things. I mean, let's be frank, it's pretty shit company. But the way that they were doing things here, I said it, but the way that they were doing things there was, very, I mean, it got a lot worse after you left, so to me, that was another reason I was so much more stressed out. They very disorganized, let's just put it that way. I don't like to talk shit on air, but it's just like,
and once again, it doesn't even necessarily have to mean that it got that much worse on a corporate level. It also has to do with the fact that now you're in a new place. Now you don't have Brett, you don't have me, you don't have our employees. True. And we had gotten into a groove where we were running a very well-oiled machine, and we had a perfect balance between getting work done and being friends and having a good time. And we had a perfect balance. So when you go into a new store and I move away and you have all that, well, now you're starting from scratch again. And if you remember what it was like when we were in Kokomo and all of a sudden everybody left and it was just us, that's exactly, remember how stressful that was? It was the same position, because now we're answering for all of the problems and we don't have anyone to share the stress with. So I think it's kind of like if you are building something like in the desert and you've got to get a bunch of blocks to one place, and you've got 10 blocks and you've got 10 people, and people are like, yeah, well, let's just talk and hang out, and 2 people carry 5 blocks apiece. It's going to take you forever, and it's going to be way more stressful than if all 10 people were able to share the load. Still, it's stressful, but now everybody's sharing the load, and you've got a balance. And everybody, even though you're stressed out, you're able to share the stress with each other, and you're able to relate with each other. So when you go to a new place and you lose those friendships and those connections, then it gets much harder to take that stress. So if from a corporate level, they do get more strict, and it does get harder. Now it's even harder because you don't have anybody to share the stress with. So, you know, it would have been the same thing, you know, if you and Brett would have left and it would have just been me, it would have been the same for me. You know, my days probably would have been numbered because, you know, we'd built in an environment where we weren't just working, but we were hanging out and having a good time too.
Yeah.
So it's always kind of detrimental when you get that ripped away from you. And I think that's why a lot of people end up leaving jobs, you know, when their favorite people that they work with leave and management changes and all that, then that's when people leave, because you build a family, you build an environment, and then it becomes harder when they leave.
Yeah. I mean, you know, to bring it kind of full circle too, I mean, like, do you, I'm trying to think of the day I actually met you for the first time. I think it was in my interview. I think you just happened to be working that day, and that was like the first time I ever saw you, at least, or I don't remember.
Very close to Black Friday, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I got thrown on a register with no training. Richard was like, "Here, have at it, trial by fire," and then I just tried it, and I somehow got the hang of it. But no, but I'm just trying to think of that day, and it's like, man, like at those times we were going through, like, I just never thought we'd be here. You know what I mean? Where we're at. It's like, when you think back on it, it's crazy how life works, man. It's like, here we are again, you know, like back together. It's almost like, because like when you and I would chat at FYE, it was like the fucking clubhouse, you know, when we would go to work, you know, and like, I feel like it's a real benefit to this show is like, we get to let people in into the clubhouse conversations that you and I used to have, because it's just, I mean, we really covered everything and anything and everything. And like, I just, because I tell you, man, if we didn't go through all that shit, we wouldn't have gravitated back toward each other now when the shit hit the fan again with COVID and, you know, us both wanting to start podcasts to hopefully do our part and all that kind of stuff. It's just crazy.
With someone so often, you work together, like, you're like, I'm with the people that I work with more than I'm with my own family a lot of times. So you kind of naturally develop friendships and develop camaraderie. And, you know, it was like so at my first job, when I worked at a catering company, I got to be friends with everybody that worked there, but it wasn't as much because, you know, it's catering. Like, we didn't have as much to relate to. We weren't working around movies and entertainment stuff that could be talked about, that there were constantly new things to talk about. And everybody was sort of part-time, and you didn't always work on the same schedule. And we weren't there super long, and, you know, we didn't have frequent management changes and stuff like that, so we didn't have a lot of stress to share with each other. So when I left there, like, even though there are some people I worked with that I feel like I could get back in touch with and I could be friends with, you know, we just don't. You know, when I left there, I kind of lost contact with all those people. You're laying on my keyboard, cat. So, you know, when we worked at FY, it was a completely different scenario. We were together longer periods of time,
a lot,
and there was a subject matter that our work was based around that we both liked. Therefore, we had something to talk about all the time. It was never awkward. We literally had something to talk about all the time. And it was a weird environment. We had weird customers. We had experiences and stories to share. And we both spent a long time at that job, and we both had a lot of stress from management changes and stuff. So we shared that, and, you know, it created a friendship. And I think it was just one of those things where I don't know that any job that I would have had, I would have been able to build friendships with people like that, just because of how much time we spent together and how much stress we had to share. You know, as stupid as it sounds, like, you know, everybody listening is probably like, it's just a retail job, but I mean, it was a big deal.
It was more than that.
It was a big deal at the time. There was a lot of drama going on. There was a lot of stuff going on, and it was stressful. And you and I both, it was more responsibility than we had in our lives up until that point. You know, we were both still pretty young. So it was stressful. So you build a friendship, and now, you know, we're still friends, of course. And, you know, we're still friends with Brett too. And if he had a podcast, we would probably be chatting on his podcast too.
B Rhett's Journey, everybody, go check it out. But he's on YouTube. But anyway, Yeah, no, but you're right, man, and it's just it's just baffling to me. Like when I think back at that time, it's like not only are we sitting there going through all the stuff. I mean, you and I probably heard drama that we probably weren't even supposed to hear about from like corporate and stuff like that, you know, when it came down to it. Like there was a lot of shit going on, and like all the different managers that came from like big cities, and you know, you and I were probably like, whoa, there's a world outside Kokomo when that came along, you know what I mean? Because
we had so many different managers in the store,
yeah,
and we heard all of their gripes.
Yeah.
So it was just like constantly there's like new stuff to talk about and 100%. New things people are complaining about.
Yeah, all the time. And it was like, yeah, it just, the job, at the very least, the job was never boring. You know what I mean?
Oh, no.
It was always, there was always something new. As pissed off as we got sometimes, as, you know, stressful as it was, and all the blood, sweat, and tears that we put into it. And I know, because people are probably going, yeah, it's just a retail job. It's like, no, you have no idea how bad that got, and how much we put into that retail job, and how terrible that store was. Well, we got to talk about this, because I mean, when you go back to the beginning, when we were first both starting out, you got Richard in charge, and we didn't do anything. We just thought it was normal. We were like, oh, this is retail. Okay.
We're like, hey, this job is sweet. We don't do anything.
Exactly. We just, because at first that's all we really did was just sit there and talk and do nothing and just go our own way, you know, and none of the stuff that he had us do really mattered, because it wasn't like he was going to come in and yell at us the next day if we didn't get a task done.
Right.
He was just going to figure it out on his own. And we also had a district manager at that time who was awesome, but he didn't seem to care too much. He was there, what, once every 6 months? I mean, we rarely saw him too. I won't say his name because I don't want to get him in any more heat than he probably already is in. But you know who I'm talking about. I mean, we saw him once every 6 months, and yeah, why wouldn't we fuck around the whole time? You know, honestly.
Well, we didn't know how much responsibility that there was.
Right.
Like for everybody listening, what happened is our manager's up and quit. I had just started working there. This was only my second job I ever had, and I was working part-time. I had worked there less than 6 months, and I got promoted to part-time assistant, so the third key. And I was like, wow, that was fast. This is only my second job. I've been here like 5 months. Okay, whatever. And literally, like within a month, the other managers quit. And now somebody who is at their second job, who just got promoted to a position that's, you know, more responsibility than I've had, and now all of a sudden the whole show is on my shoulders. And I didn't know that there were daily sale prices to do, weekly, monthly. There were fixture changes. There were literally all of these responsibilities I had never seen in my life. I did not know, because the managers either were doing that. Well, they weren't doing them. They did them every now and then, and they did them on their own time. But mostly they skipped them, and they didn't teach us about them. So now we have other managers in here. I'm slapped basically with a store directly on my shoulders, like 5-6 months after I just got there. I'm new to retail. I'm new to working, really, because I'd only done catering up until that point. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, hey, you're supposed to be doing this. Well, you're supposed to be doing this too, and this, and this, and this, and this. And I'll never forget, a manager showed up and was so fed up because they realized how behind we were. And they're like, I'm printing everything that hasn't been done. And they printed, and there was a stack of sale papers like this high.
Jesus.
And we're talking, the print was this small, and it was going down the page like this. And there's a stack of papers this high. And he's like, we have to do all of these. And I'm like, this is every item in the store.
Right.
This is everything. And he's like, this is what you're supposed to be doing on a regular basis. And that was just sale prices. Those weren't fixture changes, which we were like a year behind.
Yeah.
Like we still had movie posters up that had come out nearly a year before. We still had those up.
Remember that Linkin Park poster that would just not go away? That album came out like 10 years before we were there. It was like, how is that still up there? Would never go away. And even like after we got things fixed, for some reason that Linkin Park poster would stay there forever.
Always there, perpetually.
Always. Yes.
There was just so much that was supposed to be done. So we went from thinking, oh, this job is sweet, we don't have to do anything, to now, congratulations, this is your responsibility. Exactly. Oh, by the way, here is 1,000 pounds worth of work that you should have been doing that nobody told you about. Now it's your responsibility. Have fun turning it around.
Right.
And it was hard. So that's where we had to become friends, because now all of a sudden we had a big responsibility. And then on top of that, you had, we were in trouble as a store because we had a lot of items that were missing when we had audits. Right. We became a target store. They thought somebody was stealing, and that's when the managers bailed. And so now you got, loss prevention in there, like investigating, and we're like all of this is happening and they're breathing down your necks, and it's just, oh my gosh, it was so stressful. That was the most stress that I had been in my life up until that point.
Yeah.
But for some reason we stayed, I think because both of us saw an opportunity to, have something to pad our resume, because we knew that, it was inevitable that we were going to have to get promotions at some point because it was our responsibility. Yeah. So we both stayed, and we both ended up being there for a long time, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and I'll say this too. I think this is another thing that brought us closer together, is the fact that, I'm not going to say the name or anything like that, but with the stealing thing, I think it's safe to assume we both figured out what was going on at that point. And so we both got kind of screwed by the same thing that put both of our jobs in jeopardy. And we were like, oh, you know what I mean? So I think those were like conversations that had to be had back then too. Like we ended up just having like the tough conversations, I feel like, with one another back then. That was the thing. And like, it would always bring us closer together, I feel like. So, henceforth, I mean, we're here, but it's just, it's wild when I think back to it. It's like, never in my life did I think we'd be doing this. I'd be doing a podcast with you over Zoom. You'd be in California. You know what I mean? Like, I just never thought of that. You probably didn't think of that back then.
We thought we'd be working at FOA forever.
Right. I mean, I'm sure you had ambition.
We're going to retire there, 80 years old.
Right. No, really though, because it's like,
when you're going through something, it's hard to look outside of that scope. So it's like in your mind, that's all you're doing at that point. So you don't really think about where it's going, especially when you have that much stress put on your shoulders. Like, and that really sucked, especially, as friends, I guess, with the people that we were working with and people who were in charge. And now we're left with all this drama and all this crap that has nothing to do with us, that went on, from before we got there to while we were there, and we had no knowledge of anything that was happening. And then all of a sudden, congratulations, we're both quitting on you, and now this is your responsibility.
Right.
And it was just, it was real crappy. So, we had the choice to either quit or to either go through it and hope, I hope we can turn this around and we can, get work done and we'll get promotions out of it. And then maybe one day it'll be easy. And it was.
Yeah.
My favorite memories there are like the year before, within the year before I left.
Right. It was the best.
Had officially not just been on top of everything, but we were ahead of the game. It got to the point where even when Christmas came and Black Friday came, we were so ahead of the ball, like it wasn't even stressful anymore.
That's true.
That's true, yeah. Black Friday was chill because we were a well-oiled machine and we were having fun. I remember before I left, there were times where we were so caught up that Brett and I a couple times sat out in the middle of the mall because it was really slow.
Oh, I did that and
we ate popcorn and sat in the massage chairs because there was nothing to do because we were all caught up. And I was like, I never thought we would get to this point.
I know, it's great. It was great. That was the time period I loved. And man, like I'm glad I took the promotion because it got me other opportunities that, you know, have allowed me to make more money and things like that. So I'm glad I took it for that reason. But if I could go back, you know what I mean? On the same hand, if I could go back to that time when we were just ahead of the game and work was easy. I mean, I'll be honest, what I do on a daily basis right now is pretty much that easy anyway now. So, but it was just great to do it with you guys, you know what I mean, back then. That was the difference. And, you know, I
it was about the friendship, not the job.
Yeah, it did become about that. Yeah.
Because the job became kind of easy.
Exactly. And, you know, it was just, yeah, like I do feel that way, that we were just all getting along a lot better. We weren't at each other's throats over, you know, God knows what, you know, and it just, yeah, it did become very easy. Not that anybody was really at your throat very much, but I mean, I feel like Brett and I were always playing tug of war with you for a while there because we were, you know,
I felt like the middleman so often.
Yeah. Well, we just had a vent. We were both stressed out. We had a vent. You're good to vent too. Obviously, the reason you're doing the type of content you do now, you know, is because, you know, you have that ability to listen to people and, you know, to motivate people. You know, so it made sense. It makes sense when you think of it in that way. But Brett and I were both like, I think we were a lot more alike than he probably even realizes. You know, I didn't realize it till I got to Lafayette, because that was when I was like, oh my God, I would say things. I'm like, I sound like Brett. I really sound like Brett. And it was crazy to me. And I was like, I understand it now. I get exactly where he was coming from. Like, the way I would talk to some of my employees, I was like, Jesus Christ, what am I becoming? And I'm glad I was able to get out of there, you know what I mean, over a theft dispute. Seriously, yeah. Because, like, I know it sounds crazy, but first of all, they obviously have no evidence of that. I didn't do it, and I'm still here. I never went to jail. Secondly, you know, I'm happier now. I'm the happiest I've probably ever been in years, you know, at this point. And I'm much happier now than I was when I was at FYE. And so are you, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, I know that you had a hard year during COVID, and we kind of talked about that. Hence we gravitated back to each other. But I mean, I feel like you are the happiest that you've ever been since I've known you, you know, right now, like in life right now. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I mean, I'm climbing a mountain. I wouldn't say I'm the happiest I've ever been right now. I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm trying to get there.
Yeah.
Because I've got stuff, you know, I've got dreams and I've got things I'm working on, and I'm so far away from, you know, still from them becoming full realities. But at the same time, it feels really good. Like, I feel like to say it for what it is, face value, I don't have a real job right now. Yeah. I really don't. Like, I am in a position to where before Megan and I got married, we saved up. I was very strict with my money, and I warned her before we got married, you should be really strict with your money because we might go through some stuff. And if we are still together, like, we're going to need it. So we saved up a lot of money. We were very strict. And so we had that. And then Megan, she had a really bad year last year too, but now things are starting to look up for her, and she's making a lot more money. And we're to the point where, you know, we're not like, obviously we could be doing better financially, but we're okay. We're getting stuff done, and we're in a position to where, you know, things started happening for me with what I wanted to do, and, you know, being a content creator and making people laugh and smile. And that's what I want to do with my life. Yeah. And I didn't know how to make it happen. And things started taking off enough to where I thought, maybe this is premature. Maybe this is stupid, but I want to pursue this. Yeah. Like, because I got to a point in my life where I thought money doesn't matter to me anymore. As long as I can pay the bills and we're happy, that's all that matters. I want to come home and, you know, I want to be happy, and I want her to come home and I want her to be happy. I don't care about having a freaking yacht or a house overlooking the ocean.
Right.
That doesn't matter to me. I'm perfectly happy being in this crappy apartment and paying the bills and doing something that I'm passionate about. So,
right.
You know, things happened at a rate, and we're doing okay enough to where, you know, Megan was like, I want you to be happy, and we're okay. So I want you to do what you feel like you need to do. So I kind of dropped everything and took a huge chance and said, I want to pursue this pipe dream.
Yeah.
And I want to figure out how to get my footing and make content that makes people happy. And that's what I want to do for a living. I want to figure out how to make a comfortable living by doing that. But first, I'm going to have to squeak by.
Right.
So, you know, like I'm making money off of TikTok right now, but I'm not making enough to call it a career. I'm making some money. I'm not making near enough. But once I started making money, I was like, you know, this is possible. If I can make a little, I know that I can build on it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So in one, you know, way, I'm happy because I get to do what I want.
Yeah.
And I get to do something that makes me happy.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, I still feel like I have such a long way to go. And it feels really weird to not be working like an actual job, like a stressful job, like working retail or grinding away doing this. Like it feels weird to be doing something that like you enjoy, you know, and that isn't necessarily considered a real job.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've got that fighting at me, and I just left, you know, 2020, which was my hardest year in terms of mental health that I've ever had. I feel like it nearly destroyed me.
Yeah.
And so I still feel like I'm crawling my way out of a hole, but slowly but surely, you know, I'm getting somewhere, and it'll only get better, you know, it'll only go up.
Yeah. It's like you know that expression that's like you need to walk before you can run. Like I feel like you and I, because like even myself, I've finally been able to start making a little bit of money off of, you know, making content for the first time. And you know, I feel like you and I we're
it's always exciting when that happens though, even if it's just a little bit. It's like it doesn't wow, this is possible.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, for sure, man. 100%. It's crazy, man. It's like I feel like you and I are both starting to run. Based on that expression, like we're in the beginning stages of running, you know what I mean? But you know, I'll tell you, just this will be a good segue too. Man, after watching Bo Burnham's Inside, I have like so many new content ideas. You know what I mean? Because when you see what the guy can do single-handedly in this, it's like
I am self, man.
We feel lazy. I feel lazy now as a content creator. I'm like, I need to step up my game.
It's inexcusable.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. It's like that's all you need, man. That's what I found so inspiring about it. It's like it's all you need, man. You know, get you a microphone, a few different cameras, you know what I mean, that look nice, and just make something. You know, don't wait to make something. This guy spent his entirety of quarantine making something. It's paying off. There's a lot of people that think this will be the first stand-up comedy special, not stand-up comedy special, but comedy special to be nominated for Best Picture. You know, that's a big deal if it is, and I could see it happening because
I would be okay with that.
It's so impressive. It's so impressive. But I remember you telling me, like, you weren't a fan of Bo Burnham before this?
No.
Really?
I wasn't. I don't have anything against the guy personally, but I had friends who were really into him when I was in high school, and I had listened to him, and I thought, I don't understand. Like, I just don't like him. I don't have anything against him. I just don't get it. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
And so, and they played it all the time. So it became one of those things where it's something you're really not into, but you have friends that just abuse it. And then you're like, oh, I can't stand this.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this hadn't come out and got so much praise, I may never have gotten into Bo Burnham at all.
Yeah.
So when this came out, I started seeing people everywhere like, oh my gosh, this is revolutionary. This is going to change everything. It's phenomenal. People that I really respected, that I respect their opinions, that I never thought would have watched Bo Burnham and said they enjoyed it, coming and saying, this is a masterpiece.
Right.
And I was like, I have to watch it. I have to. And so we'll segue into this. So
for sure,
it's a little deep for me. This is a bigger deal than just some comedy special. It's a really big deal to me, and it may sound stupid, but I'll tell you why that this special is such a big deal to me.
All right.
So, and I'm planning on making a YouTube video about this. This is how much I love it and how much it inspired me. We'll probably overlap on what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
But 2020 was the hardest year for me mentally. in my life.
Yeah.
I've not talked about it to really anybody except for my wife.
Yeah.
And even her up until recently, I don't think she realized just what I was going through on a personal level inside of me.
Right.
I got to a place where I kind of felt like the sky was falling. And, you know, it's not just the fact that there was a pandemic. It's not that I was scared of getting sick or stuff like that.
Right.
Being stuck inside was just a catalyst. It was just an extra thing that made things pile on.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of stuff. I got to a point where now I was just starting to get my foot in the door in the audio industry. But I was at a point there where I was wondering, is this what I want to do with the rest of my life? Am I happy doing this?
Right.
Do I feel like I'm fulfilling my purpose? And then I felt like it was like an answer from God came down. All of a sudden, now work got ripped out from under me. And I'm like, whoa, like, okay, now I actually have time to pursue something that means something to me. And so I started that process, and then it just kind of built, and we got stuck inside for longer and longer. And then Megan was stuck at home. She had drama at work going on. Her mental health was suffering. She had to get back on her medication this year because it got so bad. And our depression and anxiety was bouncing off each other. And all of a sudden, you know, it got to, I was excited at the beginning of the year. By the middle and the end of the year, I was in a complete crisis.
Yeah.
I felt like the world was crumbling around me, and I didn't know. I felt like everything I touched just wasn't, it was crumbling. Like, and I got so depressed, and I got so bad, I started Googling different mental disorders and taking quizzes to try and figure out what is wrong with me.
Right.
Because I don't feel like this is just depression. I thought I had bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
I was going, because I was getting manic and depressive. I was getting unrealistically enthusiastic about things, and I would spend money to pursue something and go crazy and be manic about it. And then all of a sudden I would wake up and I was in a pit of despair and I didn't want to touch it anymore. Yeah. And I did that for several different activities. And I just kept feeling like my foot was all the way on the gas and then off, and then all the way and off, and all the way and off. And I just got, it was exhausting. And I got to a point where I started questioning everything. I went into a complete existential crisis, which, if anybody doesn't know what an existential crisis is, it's essentially when you begin questioning not just your purpose, but the purpose for existence. Why am I here? What is the point of any of this? Yeah. And I got to a place where I was wondering whether there was any point at all to life, to being created in the first place. You know, it got bad, and I hadn't had anxiety attacks for years. I had anxiety attacks. There were times I was alone with the blinds drawn, laying in the middle of the floor, feeling like I had an elephant on my chest, breathing heavy. I'm crying. I'm like, I just didn't know what to do, and I didn't understand it. And I started thinking about death. And like I told Megan, I'm not a suicidal person, purely because, one, I'm a religious person. Yeah. And the question of what happens if you were to do that always is kind of taxing. Like, what happens if you do that?
Yes.
What happens to my faith? What happens to me after I die? And then not just that, but I love my wife more than anything, and I love my family more than anything, and I can never do that. So I've always said I am not the type of person that would do that to myself. But I got to a point where I was questioning everything, to where I couldn't stop thinking about the inevitability of death and how life is so hard, and no matter what you do, you can't escape the pain. Yeah. There will always be pain. You don't know when it's going to come, but it's going to come. Yeah. And you can't get away from it. And I begin thinking about death seems like a gift. Like, I can't wait until it happens. I can't do it myself, but I can't wait until it happens. And it felt like I was trapped, because I felt like the best thing for me is if I were to just fade away but I can't do that to myself. So you feel trapped in this existence that you don't know what to do with. Like, I'm being made to live here. And that, I know that got really dark for a second.
You're good. I mean, no,
But,
I mean, if I could, I mean, I went through a very similar thing too, because I mean, yeah, dude, like you said, like, I don't consider myself suicidal because I also believe in, like, the higher power, and it's like, that's very taxing if you know your religion. I feel like the way that you and I do, to think about, you know, the results of something like that, very taxing. But, you know, I began to, I don't know if you would consider this an existential crisis necessarily, but I definitely began to gain the fear that I would become suicidal. You know what I mean? Like, I was fearing that because I did start to question life a lot, and just like, what is going on? And I feel much better now. Like, I feel like I did get over, like, the hump at this point, and I'm starting to climb back upward. So that's good, but it was like, man, it was tough, dude. And like, when you know, it just felt like, between like listening to things that were going on in our country, you know what I mean, and like, even just that depressed me, and like, you know, how poorly things were being done. And then you got on the other end of this, like, I was lucky enough to be able to make money during the pandemic, so I consider myself very lucky in that way. But on the same hand, it's like, it was just like, it felt like there was no end. You know what I mean? It felt like we were going down this dark tunnel, and there was no end to it.
Coming.
Yeah, and it just was like, how do we get out of this, you know, really? And then, so it was like, if anything bad happened to me, like, during the pandemic, it's like, how am I supposed to deal with the pandemic and then this other thing on top of that? And then it's like all these things just piled on. My mind cannot take that. It's not wired that way to be able to take a bunch of bad things happening all at one time. It's like, I can't do it. So I would become extra sensitive to that. I definitely had some moments of breaking down and having to, you know, just, you know, sit by myself and cry from time to time, you know. And it's like, you just have to do that for yourself to stay healthy, though, you know, otherwise you will really go down the dark tunnel, and just accept that this is what's going on, get back up, get over the hump, and get stronger from it, hopefully. But yeah, I went through
and
that
I think
too.
it's important to say for all the viewers, whoever's watching us,
yes,
that it's okay to cry.
Yeah,
like,
you need to.
It's okay to break down.
Yeah,
it's okay. It happens. Like, it happens to all of us. I don't care how macho you are.
Yeah.
There's this guy, he became really big on social media, and he's this big beefy guy, and he developed this personality to where he would yell at his camera and act like really beefy and mean all the time.
Yeah.
And people forgot there was a real person behind that. Well, he started having health complications, and his body, his muscles started kind of deteriorating. He lost that body, and he built his entire life, his entire personality around that person that he created. And I saw a video he posted recently where he was talking about, I cry every day,
wow,
because I feel like I've lost myself. I can't be this person because I've got all these problems that I'm dealing with, and I've developed this person, and you've become, you know, people have gotten to know me because of this character that I play, and I love it, and it's an important part of my life, and I cry every day. And he started crying in the video, and it really made it clear to me, like, it doesn't matter how big you are, how macho you are, whether you're man, woman, it doesn't matter. Like, when life hits you, it's okay to cry. Like, it's normal. It's okay. So, like, anybody who's going through something, like, you're definitely not alone. This is not an isolated thing. Like, everybody at some point is going to go through one thing or another. Whether one person's problem is subjectively bigger or a bigger deal than anybody else's doesn't matter, because whatever you're going through, if it's a big deal to you, that's all that matters. If it feels like a big deal to you, it is a big deal.
Yeah.
You don't have to compare your life to somebody else's and be like, well, my problem looks so small compared to this person. You know, that may be true, but the fact is, it is a big deal to you. So it's okay to be upset. It's okay to cry, you know? Yeah. And that's something that's, it's very hard, especially for guys, to accept, because we're used to holding stuff in.
I think so. Yeah.
And it was, and you know, that's probably why I didn't really talk about the stuff that I was going through, because I almost felt ashamed of it. And you know, it really recently, when the Bo Burnham special came out, I told Megan why it meant so much to me, and I told her what I was going through and everything that was going through my mind. And it kind of like I had to release it. And it feels good to release.
Yeah.
But so to segue back into the Bo Burnham thing, with all that being said, I didn't want to watch it at first. I did, but I didn't. Okay. I wanted to watch it, but I was afraid to watch it. That's the correct thing for me to say.
Oh, because you were afraid it would bring up some bad feelings again because you knew the subject matter. Okay, I'm with you. Anyway.
I got to a place where I started to feel like I've built myself back up again. And for everybody watching, don't be concerned about me. I'm okay. I got through it.
Yeah.
I'm building again. I'm starting to do things I really care about. The past several months have been great. Last year was a whirlwind, but anyway, I saw a song. It came up on TikTok and I heard it and I thought, oh my gosh, I have to hear more of this. So I played one song. I know the song.
Yeah.
And it was, which I think we all thought it was called Hands Up.
It's All Eyes on Me. It came out on Spotify.
Right.
Finally.
So they ended up calling it All Eyes on Me. Yeah. I heard All Eyes on Me and it destroyed me.
Destroyed you? Wow.
It destroyed me. Because immediately my mind went right back to where it was in my darkest moments. When the lyrics that he says in that song, I'll just say them. So when he's kind of having a conversation with himself, and I have a feeling I know what it meant to him. I know how he intended the lyrics to be, but everybody, you look at things through your own lens and they mean something different to everybody. Yeah. And I heard these lyrics very specifically to what I was going through. And, the lyrics were, are you feeling nervous? Are you having fun? It's almost over. No, it's just begun.
Right.
Don't overthink it. Look in my eyes. Don't be scared. Don't be shy. Come on in. The water's fine. And then where it like really slapped, I felt like it smacked in my face, was when he said, you say the ocean's rising.
Yes.
Like I give a shit. You say the world is ending, honey. It already did.
I know that one got me. Like, holy shit. Yeah, that got me.
And what's the next lyric?
We're going to go where everybody knows. Everybody knows.
Well,
everybody,
there's something between that. You say the world is ending, honey. It already did.
I know. I've listened to the song 1,000 times myself here today. So
something about how there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Yeah.
And something to the effect of, no matter what you do, you can't stop it.
Yeah.
And my mind went right back to that place because I started thinking about where my mind was at and the fact that there are all these things going on in the world. Like, it is not just the fact that, the fact that there is a global virus that's spreading, and there are people I know that have lost a lot of loved ones to it, and people are sick. And it's not just that, but it's the fact that then you have stuff going on socially in the country, and you've got the presidency and the election and all this drama around that, and everything gets amplified and everybody's stuck inside. You can no longer talk to each other and smile at people anymore because you got masks on your face and you completely are locked inside, and you've got all these problems, and the world felt hopeless. And it started to get to where I felt like, when he said the ocean's rising like I give a shit, I started thinking about that, and that's kind of how I felt. I felt so concerned about, there are all these problems and there are all these people that are hurting, and I'm hurting, and I want to help these problems. I want to be a part of this. I want the world to be happy. I want people to be healthy. I want people to be fed. I want freaking animals like that are choking on straws. I wish that weren't happening. There are all these problems that I care so deeply about. Yeah. And I felt like things built to a point where I literally thought, who cares anymore? We're all going to die anyway. It doesn't matter. I don't care. And I started feeling apathetic rather than empathetic. Oh, my shirt says empathy. And empathy is a cornerstone of my personality feeling what other people are feeling and having remorse for them and wanting to help people. And that's always been a cornerstone of my personality. Yeah. So it was alarming to get to a point where I felt so hopeless that I felt like it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
It's all going to end at some point. Who cares? So when I heard those lyrics, I went right back to that point and I was like, oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I saw people on TikTok commenting, should I watch this if I'm in a bad place mentally? And people were saying, maybe not. Like, maybe you should wait because it's pretty heavy. And there were people that had said, I watched this and I've been in a pretty bad place and this has made it worse. But there were other people that said, I watched this and it really helped me. And so I was in a place where I was like, should I watch it? Should I not? I feel like I've been in a good place, but the way that song hit me, I'm afraid it's going to catapult me back into a depression.
Yeah.
So I put it off and then I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I have to watch this. I just have to.
Yeah.
So I watched it and it blew me away.
Right.
It blew me away because we're talking about, and it made me remember what I went through, but it didn't send me flying back. There were moments where I felt my soul felt heavy again because I was remembering so vividly what was happening at that point in my life. But I was in a place to where I could tell myself, no, we're not going back there.
Yeah.
We're getting up. We're going upward. We're not going back. And so I was able to keep myself from that. And I got so inspired by this special, man. Like I got so inspired. This is a person that this is beyond comedy. This is beyond any comedic special. This is so much more. This is a person. He was going through an existential crisis. He was going through a deep depression. He said in the special, like, I'm basically just making this so I don't put an effing bullet through my skull. And that was so raw and like so crazy to see somebody like him say that. And, I started understanding, he had left performing 5 years prior because he was having serious panic attacks on stage. And I had watched one of his last performances that he gave where he opened up about that. And people are laughing in the audience because they think, oh, it's funny, it's Bo Burnham. But he was serious as a heart attack.
Yeah, 100%.
He was struggling so hard and people didn't realize how serious it was. So this is a man that's literally, he took on this project literally just so he wouldn't do something permanent. He took on this project to keep him busy enough so that he wouldn't hurt himself.
Yeah, I agree.
And that felt so powerful. And the transparency to see him sitting in his chair in his freaking underwear, and he's recording and he's talking about how he's trying to talk and he keeps losing his train of thought.
Yeah.
And he gets mad and he keeps doing it. And he gets so mad, he knocks stuff over and he just storms out and leaves. And I was like, oh my gosh, because I'd started doing social media content and trying to do YouTube. And there were times where I was making content. And I think we might have been doing that at the exact same time. There were times I started doing videos and I just felt like I couldn't find the words and I was getting so frustrated. And I just said, F it. And I turned off the camera and slammed my laptop and I wouldn't visit it for weeks. And there were so many points where I was there and this man was recording himself go through it. And he put it out there for us to watch. Like, I couldn't dream of setting up a camera, or I probably have footage of myself freaking out at myself. I wouldn't dream of posting that online because it's embarrassing to me and I'm ashamed of it. But this man put it out for the world to see. The transparency is incredible. And he used what he had. Like, of course, he had a budget, so he probably got more lights and stuff, but he used a consumer-grade camera and lights that we can all get our hands on, that we can all figure out how to use. He's in his freaking underwear. And he's having an existential crisis, and we're watching him work through it on camera.
Yep.
And it just it was so inspiring to me. And I know I've been going on for a long time. Sorry, I'm
You're fine. I find this all fascinating. I
don't want to be like super long-winded and feel like,
I mean, I relate to it on a level. I mean, I'll kind of go back and tell you kind of my experience with Bo Burnham and how I've kind of felt about him over the years, and I'll kind of go into this too because so when I, first saw Bo Burnham, I mean, it was words. Well, no, that's not true. I actually saw a YouTube video. He was playing that song that he got really famous from, My Whole Family, it's called. And it was hysterical. I was like, this kid's like hilarious. He's going to be probably pretty big. And then you get to Words, which was his first like actual big special, that he did. And it was great at the time. I mean, it was genius. There was something genius about the way that he was such a wordsmith that, there was something genius about the way he wrote his songs, and you were like, and it was funny, and I thought he was hilarious. And then I saw the special after that, and that one was called What? And when I saw that, I remember being so incredibly disappointed at the time and being like, this was nothing like Words. But then for whatever reason, I was on a drive and I put the album version of What on, which is basically the whole special, just in audio form. And when I was listening to it, I was like, there's a reason I didn't take to this like Words, because What is the first time he kind of broke out of just being hilarious and like making actual real ass points about things. Like there's a song called From God's Perspective, and when you listen to it, you're like, oh, this is deep. Like this is heavy. He wasn't trying to be funny. He was trying to make a point. Like there's comedic things about it, but he's trying to make a point. And I'm like, this guy is so far beyond stand-up. And then Make Happy came out, the one that you were talking about, when he was ranting at the end and he started to get into the stuff.
Kanye rant.
Yeah, and you're right. Everybody just looks at it like it's funny. But when I saw it, I felt like because of my understanding of the comedy special prior, I was like, oh, he's getting heavy. This is a real thing. And then he kind of came out and was like, I'm done with stand-up. I'm done doing comedy.
Didn't it kind of hurt to watch that? Like, Did it hurt you? Like, when I watched that, I watched it for the first time recently.
Yeah.
And hearing, like, the audience reaction, and I don't think they realized exactly where he was at mentally.
It did hurt. Yeah.
And, they're laughing, and they think it's supposed to be funny and all that. And I'm watching it like, dude, this is a guy that's hurting. Like, he's going through some really serious stuff. And he's telling the world how much he's hurting. Yeah. And and it feels very much like he's talking about, well, yeah, like I'm the funny guy and everyone's going to laugh at this, but I'm being serious. And when you read between the lines, and man, I just remember watching that and being like, wow, like I feel bad for him in that moment, because I feel like in his mind, he's putting his heart out there and he's kind of wanting the audience to get a hint that this is real. Like, I'm hurting and I'm doing it. I'm telling you in the best way that I know. And, of course he's kind of a comedian, so everybody takes it from a comedic way. So it's not like, they're bad people because they think that it's supposed to be funny and it's supposed to be, commentary or whatever, but this guy's like secretly going through something really deep, so it like hurt. Anyway, keep going.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, so I took it that way the first time I saw it, and I agree with you. It was like, oh my gosh, I don't think, like you just said, I don't think the audience realizes like he's being serious. This is Bo Burnham showing you Bo Burnham, you know what I mean, for like the first time ever, really like showing you Bo Burnham at the end of that rant. Of course it starts very comedic, but then he did really want to get into some serious stuff, and when you listen to it, it's like, I agree, it's heavy, but then after that, it was like he writes and directs 8th Grade. That movie was like so heavy, and it was like, oh my god, this movie validated everything that I just always thought about Bo Burnham, because the personality that I saw from him, the real Bo, it's all over that film. That film is from Bo Burnham. Like, you could just see it if you know who he is, you know what I mean? Or if you really like feel who he is, underneath the facade that is the comedic guy. It just, when you feel that, you watch 8th Grade, you're like, that 8th Grade just validated that for me. And then I
haven't watched that yet.
You should really watch that movie. It's
my next move. Yeah. Since this new special was kind of me like, oh, I should be watching Bo Burnham. I've I've been like, okay, well now I have to watch that. So that's the next thing that's on my docket.
And that was the first time you really start to see like this guy's like so much more than a comedian. You know what I mean? He is just an all-around talented dude. Comedy is just a byproduct of who he is as a personality. And
it's literally a way to keep himself sane.
Exactly. It really is 100%. And, you know, it's almost like his comedic facade is almost like his dark side a little bit. You know what I mean? When he puts it on there. But it's, you know, I'm sure he's a wonderful, swell guy in general. It's just, you know, you see the comedic facade. It's like the dark side, the things he's really torn up about inside. And, you know, he wants to get it out through this facade in a comedic way. But, you know, then you watch 8th Grade and it's brilliant. And then, you know, he recently was just in Promising Young Woman, literally is the co-lead of that movie, and he just gave a terrific performance in it. And I'm just like, this guy just doesn't stop. He was also in Big Sick, which was another movie that was big around the awards circuit, you know what I mean? And he was great in Big Sick. And it's just like, Jesus, this guy is just, he really does great shit. And then came to, you know, fast forward to now, Inside, I'm like, this should be interesting, you know, because I knew the idea of it before going into it was that he basically was, you know, kind of, he made this during quarantine all single-handedly. And much like you, man, I was very blown away. I was like, this is, as much as I've loved everything that he's done in the past leading up to this, I genuinely just became so blown away and it meant a lot to me on that personal level too. And the thing about the song, All Eyes on Me, my perspective of it, is very similar to yours, in terms of the lyrics. But, you know, the thing is like, this song is, to me, it doesn't make me go back to that place necessarily, because it doesn't make me feel any darker. It makes me feel better, you know, because I can relate to it. So, for all intents and purposes, as much as it was done through an existential crisis, and as much as, you know, right before that, we're watching him have his like mental breakdown, like this, like just minutes before the song starts, it's just like, in a strange way, it's like his Purple Rain, though. You know what I mean? Because it's like
it does feel like that, doesn't it?
He's honing it. You know what I mean? He's like he's accepted where he's at, but he's honing it, and he's being honest. And it's like, okay, I'm ready to show you guys Bo Burnham, like real Bo Burnham. And there was something else that strikes me very not odd, but it was just something that I picked up on a little bit, which is he's got anxiety built up so bad, I feel like, to where he can never fully show himself. So even in this song, and it works great for the effect of it, but even in the song, he has to put that effect on to where he's almost speaking not in his actual voice, because I feel like that's his way of being able to communicate the words that he was going to do. Somebody had made a version where it was pitched back up to his original voice. YouTube made that person take it down, but they made a version of it to where it was pitched up back to his actual voice. And if you listen to it that way, the song sounds just as good, whether it's in his actual voice or the deeper voice, in my opinion. Anyway, so I feel like the reason I kind of like
it pitched down.
Me too.
Simply for the reason that it feels, I don't know, it feels darker. It almost feels more desperate.
Exactly.
Like, there's just something about it. Like,
exactly.
I'll have to listen to it pitched up. I can download it and put it into Pro Tools and do that myself.
Yeah, try that. I mean, but yeah, the one thing I would say, I agree with you in terms of the effect of it, and yes, it does feel darker, but I guess the point is he didn't have to do it that way. I feel like the reason he did it that way was because he could never fully just be himself. I feel like because of his anxiety, and he always has to kind of be hiding behind something in a way, you know. So I feel like for him to do that, he had to pitch his voice down. I don't know, that was just a little detail
it's like hiding behind a mask, really. It's kind of like you know, Marshmallow, like the artist. It's kind of like he never shows his face. Like, he's this great artist and he performs in front of thousands of people, and that mask helps him do that. And so that's how I feel like that song for Bo is like so raw, being pitched down is almost like wearing a mask.
Yeah.
It's kind of like me. So today I did a funny video on TikTok where it was me impersonating Aaron Neville, which, if you know the artist Aaron Neville, has a very specific voice. It's very impressionable. Like, you can do impersonations of it pretty easily. And I've been doing it my whole life. And I was like, I'm gonna make a TikTok of this just because it's a fun impersonation to do. Now, my whole family knows, like, I have a musical family, and they know that I can sing, but I don't sing. I'm very shy about it. I don't sing in front of people.
Yeah.
And then when I post that, you know, my family is all like, "Oh my gosh, that was so good!" Like, because they never hear me sing, even if it's joking usually. And they're like, "Oh, you should do the full song and send it." And like, my dad's like, "You should send it to me, and I'll do a harmony part to it, and blah blah blah." And I'm like, "No, that still makes me uncomfortable." The only reason I was able to post that is because doing an impression is my mask.
Yeah,
I can't put my voice out there, especially with my face on camera, because I have some sort of deep-seated anxiety about that.
Yeah,
but doing it in a goofy voice is like me wearing a mask.
Right.
It makes it to where I can sing things sarcastically, but I can't seriously, because it strikes some sort of anxiety within me. So I feel like pitching it down for him is almost like wearing that mask, where it's a little raw, and doing it that way allows him to open up more.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It's like somebody who's naturally shy, but they play a college mascot, and you would never expect that they were the mascot. But when they put the mascot helmet on, nobody knows who they are, and they can be themselves. Like, that's kind of how that feels. And something I really liked about that track is, like, at the end when he grabs the camera and he's swinging it around, that it felt like a moment. Maybe he planned for it, but it felt like a raw moment where he was into the music so much, and he got so emotional that he was just like, he just grabbed the camera and he just started swinging around, and it felt very raw and very emotional.
Yeah.
And I can't speak highly enough about how that song made me feel.
100%. Yeah. I've listened to it about 10,000 times today. I'm telling you, because it's finally out there to listen to.
I can't stop.
Really, it's true. It's like an addiction.
It's an addiction.
It really is. And it's like, it does. It feels like Bo Burnham's inside is like, it's a moment in time. We're never going to forget this. Like, I don't feel like people who've seen it are ever going to forget it, because they were there, and this is like documentation of how bad it actually got for some folks. And, you know, and this is like and it's like, yeah, it did take me back, but it's like, man, I'm so glad I went through that, you know, too, because it's like, I came out stronger on the other side of it. Bo Burnham, I'm sure, feels the same way at this point in time, you know.
You learn a lot about yourself.
It's true. It's true. And, you know, there were so many brilliant, just outside of that, I mean, there were so many brilliant pieces of filmmaking within it. I mean, just let's take that performance alone. I mean, the 3 camera setup is incredible. He's got one plugged into his projector where it's full, you know, hitting the back of the wall. One that's like right there in his face. He's got another one that he overlaid over the other 2. Like, that incredible. Was like, dude, and it's all done in one take. You know what I mean? It's all done in one take. He edited it later, but it's all done in one take. And it's like, I just can't imagine. I can't imagine, like, you know, just thinking of something like that from a practical standpoint, you know, which he did. You know, that's not something that can be taught. That's like a visual eye that you have to be able to set up a shot like that. And, you know, there were other things like dude, I literally clapped in the moment when he did the reaction to the reaction to the reaction, and that moment I clapped. I was like, it just keeps going. I love it. It's so brilliant, and that's not an easy thing to pull off either from a practical standpoint. Like, you have to like really plan your shit out, and that's the thing I always saw in him. I hope he does more of these, like, not on a stage, but to where he can like edit them and make films out of his comedy specials, because he's clearly got a gift for it, you know. I think like behind the camera is where he really belongs, just as much as in front of the camera. And I think that that's what made the difference here for a lot of people, and why it's being helmed as a masterpiece. And, you know, just he really just has that talent, whether he realized it at the time or not. He's really great at this shit. And I loved watching his journey from beginning to end. And like, you know, Yeah, there's a couple different messages in All Eyes on Me. I mean, first of all, to me, you know, put your fucking hands up, you know, now I think takes on a whole new meaning, because like when you think about the time that the special came out, when you hear that, you know, put your fucking, you know, it's like, to me it's like now it just means like, okay, now we're over, we can just kind of rejoice, you know, in the fact that we're really past the hump. And then, you know, there's this other part, you know, then you got the All Eyes on Me part where it's like, oh, you know, there's still this part of him where it's like he feels the pressure because everybody's watching him, the whole world's watching, you know.
Right.
So you still had that pressure at the same time, you know.
Oh, because he says, you know, put your hands up, get on out of your seat, all eyes on me, all eyes on me, and it lines up with everything else that he's hinted at between the lines in the show.
Yeah.
In the fact that he is a performer, and for some reason, even though it kind of destroys him, he craves attention and admiration.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it too.
And he references that, like, how he doesn't understand, like, it's almost like, I don't want to crave this. Why am I so fragile? He talks about that at some point. Like, why? Like, am I so fragile that I need people to admire me? Why? So it's this weird juxtaposition, this weird balance between put your hands up, get out of your seat, all eyes on me, where it's almost like he's free and he's on stage and he wants everybody to watch him and he's performing and he craves this. And then he says, hands down, pray for me. Hands down, pray for me.
I love that line,
it's like,
too, yeah.
He craves the attention, but at the same time, the attention is what's destroying him. And he needs people to pray for him because he is broken. And there's just like, there are so many layers to this. And I just, man, and there are people that I've seen comment about this, like, oh, I can't get through it. I couldn't get past the music, or, oh, this was stupid. This wasn't funny, blah,
I haven't
blah,
heard any of that, but yeah.
And well, I read a lot of comments because I get curious about what other people have to say.
Yeah.
And especially since I really care about it and I want to know what other people are thinking because I know how I feel about it. So to anybody watching that's not a Bo Burnham fan, I would say, everybody who goes forward and watches this, you have to watch it knowing something. You have to watch it knowing this is deeper than comedy. This is not surface level comedy. This is not a guy doing stand-up. This is not just social commentary. It's somebody who's in a really deep way talking about things that are not only wrong with society, but humanity. And it's not just, and I know people are like, oh, I hate when people get political, blah, blah, blah. It's not just political. This is him openly talking about things that are driving him crazy, things that are spiraling him into a depression. So don't think of it as, oh, this is a famous guy preaching at me about the problems of the world with his political views and blah, blah, blah. No, this is a person. These are the things that are actually driving him to depression and insanity that he can't stop thinking about. We are looking into his brain. This is the most vulnerable thing I have ever watched. I've not watched anything as vulnerable. You can't get any more vulnerable than this. That's why we will never see something like this again, most likely.
Right.
This will be the only thing of its kind. People may try, but it will probably never be as authentic because nobody's ever done this before. Who is crazy enough to go through a complete depression, complete existential crisis to the point where they're suicidal and they are like, I'm going to put up a camera and I'm going to record it and I'm going to be raw and I'm going to show people this stuff. Even though I'm probably ashamed of it, I'm going to do it because this is the only way that I can keep living, because if I don't have something to work on, I'll end it. Like it's so raw and you're never going to capture that again. No. People may try, but it's so genuine. And so when you're watching it, don't even pretend it's a comedy because it really doesn't feel like one.
Right.
You are literally watching somebody who has unwound nearly to their last thread, and them making this is him trying desperately to not unwind the rest of the way. It's like you're knitting and there are a couple locks left together, and him making the special is him desperately trying to keep those locks together, because if they unwind, he's completely broken and there's nothing he can do about it.
That's
So this
so
is
true.
somebody who's literally on their last thread, and you're watching it on camera. You're watching him. This is his therapy. This is him getting through it. So you have to watch it from a very raw, very real perspective of somebody that this is broken. They're broken, and this is their therapy.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so inspiring to me. And that's something we can talk about next, is what inspired you about it. Because
sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, again, it's the filmmaking. It's the fact that he just single-handedly did it, you know, and like, it's like, well, I think it's been stated too, because it's like you just said, man, he was like next to suicidal. I mean, the moments when he's watching himself, trying to talk himself out of committing suicide. Like, think about that. But you're taking that and you're putting it into a film. It's like, and you're letting people see your vulnerable side. To me, first of all, that's something that content creators should just do. You know? Like, I think so, because if we're not ourselves on camera, big part of why I wanted to start this show, you know what I mean, is because I feel like this is probably, as far as this channel goes, this will be our most raw and real show that we have. You know, it's just you and I sitting down and having a chat. That interests people, like, and I think that this is evidence of that. You know what I mean? That something along those lines interests people, and it's inspiring just to know that somebody made something to let other people know that they are not alone in this world when it comes to these things. Yes, during the pandemic, we all got pissed off at the internet. We all got pissed off at the fact that Zoom is probably the only way we can communicate with each other. You know what I mean, or and things like that. You know, it was hard to accept that this is going to be a new form of communication. I'm happy we have it, but you know, he opens up with that brilliant song, FaceTiming with my mom. It's like, yeah, it's like there's so much frustration that comes with not just FaceTiming with your mom, but I love the song, but anybody, you know what I mean?
True, though.
It is. It was so true. It was very true.
Someone's covering the camera that part.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
so funny.
And you know, he's putting it into a very, as random as it feels, it also feels very concise. You know what I mean? And it feels like it's just
so orderly for being so random.
Right. Yeah. And just it, yeah. And you know, the thing that it inspired me to do is, you know, hopefully make something on that level someday. You know what I mean? I was talking to, I don't know if you've seen this yet or not, but I was talking to Sammy last week about, on the show Movie Night, guys, go check it out every Monday night at 11:30. But I was talking to her about Quiet Place 2. Now, I said that I think that Quiet Place 2 is actually the best film I've seen in the past 20 years. Me personally.
Wow.
Which is high praise. I get that, but and I was trying to pinpoint what makes, because I was likening it to other movies that are just like classics in a lot of ways, and like how movies were successful that way. And I was talking about movies like Jaws, you know, like a lot of the old Spielberg stuff, Raiders of the Lost Ark, or Star Wars and things like that, you know. And I was trying to liken Quiet Place 2 to that, because it has this certain quality that I couldn't put my finger on that all those films also have. And to me, this even this Bo Burnham special kind of has this now, to where it's like the thing I think I'm talking about is the hard work is on the screen. You know, I feel like Quiet Place 2 had that. I feel like this now has that. Where when your hard work is on the screen, when the camera almost becomes a character in what you're doing, it's like that's the best work to me, you know. And yeah, Bo Burnham, for obvious reasons, the hard work is on the screen here, you know, because he shows the process. He intercuts his behind the scenes sort of process with this, to show us this was not easy. You know, this was something I had to do a lot of research and work for. And sure, like you said, he has more money than a lot of us. But it's not that this stuff is not obtainable too. You know what I mean? These are like, you know,
it totally is
perfectly reasonable consumer cameras and microphones, and you know, I personally, not trying to brag, but I already have some of that stuff now. You know what I mean? That I can go ahead and, you know, just make. Spielberg once said a line a long time ago where he said, somebody asked him, you know, what's your advice for people wanting to get into filmmaking, and he said, this has always stuck with me almost my whole life, ever since I heard him say it, where he said, if you want to become a filmmaker, get a camera and go shoot something. Don't wait, just start. Just shoot something.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Bo Burnham essentially did here, you know, is he just made something, you know, and it paid off, sure, but it might not have. Either way, I would have loved it because I see the hard work on the screen. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's just it's inspiring when you see people and younger people too. I mean, I know he's 30 now or whatever. There was a whole thing about that. That was heavy to watch in there, but you know, I know he's 30 now, but he's still of the younger generation, and I think that's another inspirational thing to me is watching this next generation, you know, become the new wave of great filmmakers and great content creators and things like that. You know,
it's amazing. It's the passing of a torch.
It is, on top of being able to relate to the things that they are doing, and you know, them putting the things out that they are telling us all, you're not alone. You know, if you've ever been through this stuff, you're not alone. But that's, yeah, to me, that's what makes it so special. You know, it's just, it is something that's relatable, funny, heavy, all in one package, all in one somehow concise package. And it shouldn't be. When you really look at all the elements, all the layers that are going into it, it shouldn't work, but it does, because it was done with hard work. You know, the hard work paid off, yeah, in that way.
And something just off of what you just said about, or we were talking about, we're passing the torch to the younger generation.
Yeah.
I think most of us are probably, like obviously Bo Burnham is, kind of scared of getting old, scared of aging, scared of leaving your prime. That's something, since I was a child, I've been very open about how I'm terrified to become old. I'm terrified of it. And I always have been. That watching something like this it makes it so much easier to accept that, because we look at what happens as we get older. We're seeing people we grew up watching on TV and acting in movies, artists we grew up listening to, comedians we grew up watching, athletes we grew up who were the best of the best, and we're watching them retire or die. And
true,
a lot of people get depressed about that, and I think it'll never be the same. The legends are dying and it'll never be the same. But that's not true, because before them, there were people who everybody thought was better than them, and they died or retired, and everybody thought it'll never be the same.
Yeah.
But then the torch got passed and they came up. That's happening right now. All the people for our generation that we grew up watching and being inspired by, they're getting old. And we can be depressed about it and think, oh, the golden era is over. It's over. That's it. But this really puts it in perspective. Do you know how cool it is? It's not that they're getting old and it's ending. It's evolving. Like, he just passed 30 and he created something that's a masterpiece. This is somebody who is in his prime that just had his, he's always been big, but he just had his breakout thing. Like, this was a masterpiece that everybody loves. He just had his first thing that is being universally praised and is putting him at another level on the map. So we're seeing younger people for the first time. These people we're watching, these young actors, young comedians, young directors, they're getting the torches.
Young YouTubers.
These are the people, these are the people that our generation and the generation below us and the generation below them, these are the people that they are going to grow up watching.
Yes.
And when they are 60 and 70 years old and people like Bo Burnham retire or pass away, they're going to be thinking the same thing. Oh, it's never going to be the same. All the legends are dying. No, they're not. The torch is being passed, and we're watching it right now. And that makes it very exciting to get old in a way, because we've been so young. We've never been bosses and CEOs and star actors and the greatest athletes and the greatest singers or rappers or performers of all time. They've always been people who are older than us.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting into our prime, and those people are getting old. Now is our generation's time to shine. Now we're not living in the shadow of boomers and Gen X. Like, we are taking the reins, and people in our generation are now becoming the bosses, are now becoming the people who will inspire another generation. It's very exciting to think about in that way.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're watching, and who knows what he'll do in the future. You know, maybe he'll go back to doing live performances. Maybe he'll start directing more movies. Maybe he'll start acting in more movies.
Yeah.
For all we know, this could catapult him into superstardom. And
100%.
you know, 30 years from now, we can be talking about him like we talk about Scorsese or something.
Right, exactly.
Like, and we're watching that. It's incredible to think about. But
yeah, I felt the same way about John Krasinski as well when I saw Quiet Place 2. You know, this is the next Spielberg, you know, or something. He really just he has this unbelievable gift that can't be taught, you know, and it's just something that you that's something you're born with. I feel like a visual eye or something, or not, maybe not born with, but you learn that on your own, or you learn it on your own. It's not something that somebody can just tell you how to do. You gain that skill through experience and studying other films, and but you can't just teach it, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like I can tell you, hey Adam, grab 3 cameras and, you know, make that, you know, because it's not something that I can just explain to you. It's like, no, your vision needs to come from you inside. And yeah, I mean, going into the fact of the new legacy, I guess, as we were saying, you know, when we're talking about Bo Burnham when he's older or dead, you know, God forbid, I mean, eventually he will pass, but you know, I just think about this special, and it's like everybody's, gonna remember him for this, you know, and we saw that mark in the world for him, you know, just now. Like, we got to experience that.
To watch it.
Everybody's gonna remember him for this, and it's really, really cool, man. It really is, and it's like, yeah, I don't know, and I know that not everybody's gonna think as deep about it as we do, but you know, even if it just does as little as help you out a little bit or relate, you know, to somebody a little bit, to the point where, you know, it gets them through a depressing time. That's amazing right there. You know what I mean? That's enough. And yeah, I think that I hope he is. I haven't heard him really speak on the special much, but I would imagine he has to be super proud, you know, watching this back at the very least, you know, and like, and to feel like, because he helped a lot of people, you know, he did. He put himself out there to say, hey, I worked through this. I was like at rock bottom, but I got through it, you know what I mean? And I ended up, come hell or high water, putting this thing out there and was able to sell it to Netflix, you know. Sure, my name's Bo Burnham, so Netflix was going to buy it regardless, but, you know, I did it, you know. You could do it too, you know. It doesn't have to be even at the same level quality in terms of all the equipment I have, but what a single person can do is amazing to me, you know what I mean? Just what one single human being can do, you know, they can make, just one YouTube video can move mountains, you know, if you have the right thing, you know what I mean? And it doesn't one TikTok now can move mountains, man. I mean, it's like you don't even know until you try, you know. So like,
content has evolved so much. Like, think about back in the day when TV and movies and stuff first came around. Like, people who were famous, like all of the best artists, like they were either on the radio or they were movie stars, and or they were, you know, singers who were on records. Like, and it was few and far between. Now, oh my gosh, all those things still exist, but now we've got we've got YouTube, and we've got
Yeah.
more movies are being produced, more TV shows. Now we've got podcasters, we've got YouTube creators, we've got people who make Instagram content, TikTok content. All, people are becoming influential and like superstars and creating very wonderful things. We've never had a time where there have been so many amazing creatives in the world with exposure to the entire world.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But to go back and touch on the fact that anybody can do it. So obviously we said he had a budget. He had a budget from Netflix. So obviously he could get things that he needed. If he needed props, if he needed more lights, he could do that. So, right. A lot of people, you tell them, oh, you can use what you have, and a lot of people will be like, yeah, but that's something that you can say because you've got this camera and you've got these lights, and Bo Burnham, he had those nice lights and he had the control surface to control the lights and he had all these different cameras. And it's like, yeah, but the thing is, and I'm telling you this as an audio engineer, I went to school for audio engineering. I am an audio engineer. I can tell you from an audio engineering perspective, it's true. You can use what you have. Like you can look at a Neumann microphone, a U87 that costs between $3,000 and $5,000, which is a standard in the audio industry. You can look at that and think, oh, I could never afford that, so I can't get into recording quality vocals. That's BS. You can get a $50 microphone off of Amazon right now.
Yeah.
And some editing software for your computer. You don't have to get Pro Tools that costs a bunch of money. You can get some cheap editing software, learn the craft, learn how to do it, and you can get the microphone to sound good. Of course, a U87 is going to sound like a U87, but you can get it to sound good to where people won't be able to tell the difference if they don't have a trained ear. And that's what's happening right now. I can tell you firsthand by knowing other audio engineers in the industry, what's happening right now is even in audio, big studios are becoming more, they're becoming less frequent as they used to be because people can make bangers from their bedrooms.
Exactly.
It's possible. So having the best of the best gear in some cases can get you better results.
Yeah.
But what it really, in many cases it does, like obviously having, an Arri Alexa cinema camera is going to get you amazing footage that my Fujifilm camera doesn't. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, what expensive gear is going to get you is convenience. Because if I get a U87 microphone for several $1,000s, I don't have to EQ it. I don't have to do as much later. Versus if I get a $50 microphone off Amazon, I might have to put it in and I might have to tweak it. I might have to EQ it and listen to it and improve it. But so that's what's happening here. Bo, first of all, is using products that anybody can get their hands on.
Yeah.
That anybody can learn. Yeah. These some of them may be fairly expensive for our budgets, but they're not like super pro grade. Like he was using a Lumix camera that's maybe $3,000, which is not like, it's not a cinema camera. That's a consumer camera.
Yeah.
And the lights he's using, you can get on Amazon. Like now they may be out of your budget, but those things that he's using, you can get the same results that he does. Those things just make it more convenient to where he doesn't have to tweak as much.
Yeah. You
can still do it. It might take you a little more time. There might be a little bit more of a learning curve. You might have to be a little more creative, but you can get the same result on a far smaller budget.
Yeah.
You can. And that's something that was really inspiring about this is the fact that this guy did this by himself. He wrote it, he filmed it, and he edited it by himself, locked up in this room. Like he did that himself. And that's not even the most inspiring part about it to me. That's very inspiring, and it makes me want to make more content like it has a lot of people. The most inspiring thing to me was what we just talked about, which was the intimacy, the transparency, and the vulnerability, and the fact that, and he kind of spoke on all this when you were talking about him doing a reaction to his reaction to his reaction.
Right.
How the internet has made us we're almost like not people anymore. Like there's influencers, and it's like, think about how many people's YouTube channels are like, hey guys, what's up?
Right.
And it's like, who is this person? Is this even a real person? And then when you see them in public, they're like, hey, what's up, dude?
Yeah.
And you see them on camera and they're like, hey guys, I got a really exciting unboxing for you.
Exactly.
And it's like, who is this person that I'm watching? So it really opens your eyes to the fact that for some reason, when you step in front of a camera, the camera makes you do something. And a lot of people don't realize they're doing it. I think it's discomfort. It's something inside them that feels vulnerable. It's like we talked about putting on a mask to make you feel more comfortable. So some people, they put on this personality because it makes them feel more comfortable in front of camera. But it's also the fact that we've gotten so used to developing these fake personalities that it feels like the standard. If you're going to be on YouTube, you have to develop this really weird scripted personality. And it's like, you're not a real person. And it really opens my eyes and everybody's eyes watching this to the fact that these are real people behind these cameras. Like, why can't we be real? Why can't we be raw? Why can't we film us having mental breakdowns in our underwear and being like raw and real? Why can't we film each other talking like we're just talking right now? These aren't personalities. We're having a conversation. Whether there are microphones here or not, we would be having the same conversation. Why can't we do that? You know? Why does everything have to be so scripted and organized? And that inspires me because I feel like I try to be as real as possible. Most of the stuff that I do is very unscripted. It's just I figure out what I'm going to say on the fly and I say it. But I feel like regardless, you're going to develop some sort of weird on-camera personality just naturally out of discomfort. But it's really made me want to put more effort into being real and being raw and being like, you know what? Why, if I'm making a YouTube video, why does it have to be in the perfect position to make me look flawless and make my background look flawless? Why can't I grab a camera if I'm like upset and I want to make a YouTube video? Why can't I grab a camera and I'm in my pajamas and my hair's a mess? Why can't I sit down and I be real with people and tell people? Why do I have to put out this scripted personality? And, you know, remember when you were starting to take YouTube really seriously and we had a conversation and you were asking me about kind of developing comfort on camera and an on-camera personality of sorts and trying to get more natural and more comfortable. And we had that conversation, and the advice I gave you was to pretend the camera's not there and pretend you're talking to a friend. Pretend that there's not an audience on the other side, not like you're running a show. Pretending that you're talking to a real person and be you, because your personality is what's going to sell. And that was what we talked about. And your content, as a result of talking about that, and, you know, my content too, just having that conversation together, as a result, got better because you got way more comfortable in front of the camera, and it took some time, but you got way more natural. And I think the same for me. When I first started, it felt very unnatural. And now if a camera's in front of me, I feel more likely to be able to just be myself, just be who I am. And I think in today's age, people really want transparency. And that's the age. If you want me to go Gary V for a second and predict what's going to happen in the future, that's what we're going to see more of. And Bo Burnham's special, it was only a matter of time before somebody did it, but he did it. It was only a matter of time because people crave authenticity right now more than anything, because people are so fake. We've developed this Instagram world where everybody has to look beautiful all the time, and everybody has to be fake, and everybody has to be living a van life and traveling Sweden. And every morning they wake up and they fresh brew their coffee on the beach, and there's always a sunset, and everything's perfect, and their hair looks great, and everything's fake. And it's made people really insecure about their lives. So people want to see real, raw. They're craving that. So I think this was just a sign of the times. It was only a matter of time. People want this. And going forward, this kind of content is going to be king. That's why TikTok is big right now, because Instagram drove people to a place to where they were living fake lives. Everybody was plastic all the time. It was putting people's self-esteem in the crapper because they felt like, why is my life not this perfect? Because all these people are plastic. They're grooming their lives to look perfect, and a lot of it's out of their own insecurities. And then you look at it and you're like, what the heck is wrong with me? Why is my life like this? Well, people are tired of that. People want to see each other dancing in their pajamas without makeup on. They want to see people just talking in front of the camera and being real and being embarrassing. Yeah. They want to see people crying on camera when they're upset. Yeah. They want to see it. Like, I want to see a grown man cry when he's upset. Yeah. I'm going to hit like, because it's raw and you don't see it. And that's why TikTok is the king of social media platforms right now. Yeah. Because it started as entertainment, but it evolved into vulnerability and intimacy. And it's the one place where people are getting millions of views by being themselves. Right. Old people who don't know how to work cameras are getting millions of views because it's hilarious. Just because they're very real. They're confused. They don't know how to work their camera. It's a very real thing that's going on. They don't know how to use their camera. And people love it because it's hilarious. Because it's a real thing that they're going through. It's not plastic. It's not scripted. So I think going forward, that content is going to be king. So
I agree.
But like I said, people are going to try and copy it. People are going to try and do it more. But what we have right now is really special in that Bo's special is kind of one of a kind. Who would think to film their mental breakdown?
Right, exactly.
Who would think that?
Exactly.
It's wild. It's crazy. Yeah. But anyway, to kind of bookend that, I'll tell you how much I like this special. And I haven't bought a physical copy of anything in a very long time. Never thought I would need to buy a physical copy, whether DVD, CD. I didn't think I would ever need to. I've had no urge to. I looked at Megan yesterday and I said, if this gets released on physical copy, we're getting it. We're getting the CD, we're getting the Blu-ray, we're getting the vinyl, we're getting all of them. Because like, I'll go out and say, I can't think of anything that's released in recent memory that means more to me than this does. Like you said, Quiet Place was the best thing you've seen in the past 20 years.
That, yeah, myself, yes.
Like right now, this Bo Burnham special is that for me. And part of that is just the emotional connection that it hit with me, that it meant something to me. And the fact that it is groundbreaking and it probably is going to change entertainment. Yeah. But that's that for me. This thing means more to me than anything I've watched in a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's great we both got to have that in the same year with something. You know, I do love the special. I don't know if I would give it the same praise as I did Quiet Place 2, but I still really love the special, and it meant a lot to me.
They're two completely different things, though.
Oh, for sure. For sure. But no, man, and I see where you're coming from, and I see why you had that connection to it, and that's, great. And for me, it's just, I mean, I don't really have any problems with the special either or anything like that. So don't get me wrong. I think it's perfect all the way through. I think everything, I think it's perfectly perfectly imperfect, maybe is a better way to put it. You know what I mean? And I love that.
It's a beautiful mess.
It really is. It's a very beautiful mess, and I'm gonna watch it about 100 more times. Trust me, I love it that much.
Me too.
I can't wait to put it on again, dude. Like I think it's just one of these moments in time once again that we're just never gonna forget. Like never ever, and it's just. I don't know, man. It sucks. I'll tell you what. We do got to wrap up. I had a second shot of Moderna today, so that makes me very drowsy and very tired. So unfortunately, we are going to wrap up here soon. I'm starting to get to that point. But yeah, this was fun. I like this. Let's do this monthly for sure. It's always great catching up with you, man, and I'm glad we're able to do it now. Thanks to things like Zoom, and it's great, man. It's awesome. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave feedback in the comment section, do all that, share this with your friends if you think they'd be interested. And for sure, just go follow Adam. Where can they find you there?
You can find me at the Red Eclectic on TikTok. It's where I spend the most time. Instagram, YouTube, you name it, at the Red Eclectic.
Great. And for the audio listeners, this will be on Spotify as well, so you can go check it out there. Trying to get on the Apple Music, man. They're a tough cookie to crack, So, yeah, but we'll get it. We'll get there eventually. But it will be on Spotify and Amazon Music, I believe, so you guys can listen to it there as well for your commutes or whatever. And yeah, also Twitter for me, Dom at Dom_Martino_, and I can't fucking do this with you sitting next to me. Instagram is going to be Dom_. You know what? It'll be in the description. And you know what? Twitter and Instagram at AnorexOfficial across all platforms. That one was a bit easier. And check out all the other content we got going on here. So yeah, that's going to wrap that up. And we'll see you guys later. Good night.
Peace.